Tony Taylor. Are you here for Leaders Lead the podcast? Let's go. Hey, how did you beat me? Look, let me tell you about this podcast. We got like 5 seconds. Leaders Lead the podcast is about leadership. Not just the leader without, but the leader within. All of these leaders that I'm talking to across the country, well, across the world now, they have one thing in common, and that's that they have overcome some insurmountable obstacles to get to where they're at today. Come on, let's go. If you're listening to this right now and you feel broken, blindsided, ashamed, or feeling like you're losing your mind, you are not alone. Betrayal doesn't just hurt you, it shatters you. Today, we're talking to somebody that's going to tell us what to do when it all falls apart. Today, I'm talking with Dr. Debi Silber, whose research changed everything we know about betrayal. She studies what happens to your mind, your body, and your identity when somebody you trusted destroys that trust. If you're in the middle of the pain, this conversation is for you. Hey, welcome to Leaders Lead today. How are you?
I'm good. I'm looking forward to our conversation.
Yeah, I know I told you this before, but before we even get started, I checked out your TEDx and I was looking at your podcast, and I want to say I really appreciate the work that you're doing to help people move through this. I mean, I know how betrayal can be, and I know how bad it can hurt. So thank you for all the amazing things that you're doing.
Oh, thank you. I mean, it is such a shock to the body, to the mind, to the heart. This is the person we trusted the most. This is the person we ran to when other people were causing harm. And now that's become the person causing the harm. So it is completely traumatizing, unsettling. Good news is you can heal from all of it.
Yeah. And betrayal, it could be, a partner, a spouse, it could be a child, it could be a parent, right?
Yeah, it's the breaking of a spoken or unspoken rule. And every relationship has them. And the way it works is the more we trusted and the more we depended on that person, the deeper the impact. So let's say a child who's totally dependent on their parent, that's going to have a different impact than, let's say, your best friend sharing your secret, your coworker taking credit for your idea. Still betrayals, but it's whenever we were counting on that person and then it's like they pull a mask off, that's the betrayal.
Yeah, I'm imagining that whoever is looking at this, maybe they're looking at it on YouTube, they're looking for their friend, probably gave them a podcast. And I'm imagining that the person that's listening to this is, it just hit them, right? Mm-hmm. So for someone who has just found out that they were betrayed and they actually feel like, the world is falling from up under them, what is the first thing that you would want them to know?
The first thing is, and hopefully we talk about the discoveries, that were made in my study, because you'll see exactly what to do when. But when you've been shocked and blindsided, one of the things you need to know is even though it happened to you, it's not about you. It's not. We think it is. So we go into all this questioning. Was I not enough? Did I do something wrong? All about us. And it really isn't. It's about the other person's lack, scarcity, unhealed trauma, sense of entitlement, whatever. But it's not about us. When we've been shocked, though, we are completely out of our body. Our mind's been hijacked. So this is about, getting our nervous system regulated again, because like a trigger can take us down early on. And, we think PTSD triggers are just reserved for like war vets. They hear a car backfire and they feel like they're back in combat. Well, betrayal you can have PTSD symptoms. You see something that reminds you hear something, and your body is reacting and responding as if it's happening again. It's not, but tell that to your body, because your body's acting like it's right back there.
Right. Oh man, I felt that. I felt that when you were saying that. I'm curious, why does betrayal cause a level of shock and confusion that people never expect? Like, why does that happen?
Well, think about it. Safety and security, those are basic foundational needs. And the people we trust the most, right? Those are the ones that give us a level of safety and security. So when that person or those people are the very people that laid that groundwork of safety and security, when they're the ones to take it away, we have nothing to stand on. That was our sense of security, right? We felt comfortable, we felt supported, we felt loved, we felt safe. And that's the person who takes it from us. So that's the reason why it hits us. It hits us so differently than any other kind of trauma. Betrayal is a different kind of trauma. That was actually the first discovery made in my study. We treat it just like other traumas, and that's why we don't heal from it when we do. When we treat it as if it is a very unique trauma, which it is, it's a very different experience. Like, think about it. When you lose someone you love, for example, that's a trauma. You grieve, you're sad, you mourn the lost life will never be the same. But you don't go back and look at the relationship and question it. You don't question your ability to trust. You don't question, when I was thinking this, they were thinking this. You don't question it, right? With betrayal, you do. And what happens is betrayal not only shatters, like if you lose someone you love, it shatters life as you've known it, right? That person is no longer in your life. But with betrayal, you also, it shatters the self. Rejection, abandonment, belonging, confidence, worthiness, trust. They're all trashed and have to completely be rebuilt. That doesn't happen with other traumas. It happens with betrayal.
Wow. Why? I'm curious, and not just me. I did a poll with some of our listeners, and one of the feelings that they felt the most was embarrassed or stupid or ashamed when they did nothing wrong. Why do you think that is? Why do you think that that's a thing?
It's a common response. And let's just be clear. I've been through it. You don't study something like betrayal unless you need to, So I get it. We can talk about that too. But just to answer your question, we're embarrassed because we didn't see it coming, as if we know how to see this kind of thing coming. Here's the thing, and I want to reframe this for everybody. We don't know how to think that way. So you don't know, if you don't know how to think like that, how could you see it coming? You don't know, like for me, I can really legitimately say that I live a life where I question, will this hurt somebody? And if the answer is yes, I don't do it, like, period. And I assume other people follow that same rule. And I'm always kind of shocked and amazed that that's not how the world works, But if you're shocked and blindsided by a betrayal, that's exactly, that's one of the reasons why you don't know how to think that way. You are abiding by the spoken and unspoken rules of that relationship. And without your awareness, without your consent, someone chose to break those rules. So that's why.
Wow, you are speaking to my soul. Some people describe betrayal as if they are losing their mind. What's actually happening inside of their brain and their body when this shock hits?
Yeah, you are losing your mind, and you're also losing the old you. You are.
I like that you say, yeah, you are losing your mind.
No, you are, and you have symptoms of, and this was the second discovery of, and I should say, we're never broken, bent, right? I was so broken that usually I go to a book, a course, a something to help me heal. And there was nothing. So I enrolled in a PhD program to study this at the PhD level, because I was like, I have 4 kids, 6 dogs, a business. Like, I have to get it together. I couldn't afford just to check out. I wasn't going to medicate. I wasn't going to numb. Like, I had to move through this. And so I enrolled in this PhD program, and then it was time to do a study. So I studied betrayal. And I remember thinking, I have no idea if I'm going to heal from this, but if I do, I'm taking everybody with me. Like, it was just a flat out knowing. And so to answer your question, the second discovery from this study was there's actually a collection of symptoms, physical, mental, and emotional, so common to betrayal. It's now known as post-betrayal syndrome. Now, we've studied over 100,000 people, and I'm happy to share the stats with you, and you will see exactly what happens physically, mentally, and emotionally when someone's betrayed. This is unlike, like I said, it is unlike any other trauma because of the shock to the body, to the mind, to the heart.
Damn. So what does those symptoms look like?
Yeah. And I'm happy to share them, because if you didn't want to know, that would be an awkward little moment. Okay. So I'm going to share this. This is now, imagine 100,000 people, just about every country's represented, men and women. Here's the thing too. We've all heard time heals all wounds, right? I have the proof that when it comes to betrayal, that's not true.
Yeah, I hate when people say that.
It's not true. There's a question on the quiz that says, is there anything else you'd like to share? People write things like, my betrayal happened 35 years ago. I'll never trust again. My betrayal happened 15 years ago. It feels like it happened yesterday. So we can't count on time. We can't even count on a new relationship to heal it. Healing needs to be deliberate and intentional. I'll get to that in the next study, in the next discovery. But now imagine, I'm going to share these stats with you. As much as I share these stats and you hear the symptoms, I want you to hear these numbers too. So out of 100,000 people, 78% constantly revisit their experience. 81% feel a loss of personal power. Think of the choices you make when you don't have a sense of personal power. 80% are hypervigilant. That's exhausting. Checking someone's phone, checking rights. 94% deal with painful triggers. These are the most common physical symptoms. 71% have low energy. 68% struggle with their sleep. 63% have extreme fatigue. So you're sleeping all night, you wake up, you're exhausted. Your adrenals tanked. 47% have weight changes. So in the beginning, you can't hold food down. Later on, you're emotionally eating, using food for comfort. 45% have a digestive issue, and that could be anything: Crohn's, IBS, diverticulitis, constipation, diarrhea, you name it. And I have a very interesting story about gut issues, if you want me to share that after.
Oh, yeah.
The most common mental symptoms, 78% are overwhelmed. 70% are walking around in a state of disbelief. 64% are in shock. 62% can't concentrate. So imagine you can't concentrate. Let's say you're exhausted. You have a gut issue. Now you got to go to work. Now you have to feed your kids. Now you have to take care of your elderly parents, whatever. That's not even emotionally. Emotionally, 88% experience extreme sadness. 83% are very angry. And it's very common to bounce back and forth between those two all day long. I'll just read a few more. 79% are stressed. This one killed me. 84% have an inability to trust. When you can't trust, think about how that's going to affect you at work, in your relationships, in your own decision-making, all of it. 67% prevent themselves from forming deep relationships because they're afraid of being hurt again. That means that 67% put the big wall up, keeping the bad ones out, but keeping out the good ones too. 82% find it hard to move forward. 90% want to move forward, but they don't know how. The most staggering thing about that is, you didn't hear me say 20%, 30%. These numbers are super high. They're also not necessarily from a recent betrayal. This could be from the parent who did something awful when you were a kid. This could be from the partner who broke your heart in high school. So think about this. That person may not know, care, remember. They may not even be alive. And here we are, decades later, with these symptoms, because it's left unhealed. The good news is you can heal from all of it. That was the third discovery.
Damn. So it's almost like it's eating them alive.
Oh, it is. It is. You know, I mentioned that gut issue story. So we had a woman in our program in her mid 80s. She had a 70+ year digestive issue from a family betrayal. She was adopted. They didn't tell her. It was like one of those 70+ years, a gut issue. 2 weeks in our program, healed from a 70+ year digestive issue. That's what happens when you deal with the root cause. But what happens is we medicate and suppress the symptoms. And we live a life like that, thinking, oh, it's aging. Oh, it's stress. No, it's not. It's your unhealed betrayal.
Wow. Yeah, that takes me back to, I had an incident where life kind of just slapped me in the face, and I felt very betrayed over a circumstance. And all of a sudden I start having back issues. I start having issues like with walking, and the kick of it was the digestion stuff. Oh my God, that was it. but it made it hard for me to get out of bed.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, like for the people that are in that circumstance right now, and they can't even fathom even getting out of the bed to face sunlight.
Yeah.
Uh, what would you say would be the first step towards doing that?
Yeah. Well, the third discovery was that while we can stay stuck for years, decades, a lifetime, and most people do, if we're going to fully heal, we will move through 5 proven predictable stages. We even know what happens physically, mentally, and emotionally at every stage. And we know what it takes to move from one stage to the next. Healing's entirely predictable. Happy to share the stages. But what I would recommend is I want someone to know the stages, because when they know, oh, this is classic stage 2. Okay, let me get myself to stage 3. Okay, I'm in 3. Classic. Let me get myself to stage 4. When you know there's a roadmap, now you have something to follow. And it's predictable. So you don't have to wing it, say, maybe I should try this, maybe I should do that. No, you have to move through it physically, mentally, emotionally, psychologically, spiritually. And what a lot of people do is, I also know what doesn't work, right? Like, let's say they join a support group, right? They will actually sabotage their healing because they found their people.
Mm,
Or let's say they go to therapy, and well-meaning therapists, but if they're not highly skilled in betrayal, that person's going to feel heard, validated, understood. They're not an inch closer to moving to the next stage. And I also know that because I certify coaches, healers, practitioners. The therapists are the hardest ones to certify, because when I'm sitting down with them at the end of our certification, where there's this case study portion where they're doing that with me, the idea is, how do you move that person even incrementally towards the next stage? And they'll chat with me about where they're at and what they feel. And we know that there's an important place for that. But I teach all of my coaches and practitioners, you don't have anybody leave that session until they are an inch closer, 2 inches closer, a percentage closer to that next stage, because the idea is to move them through those 5 stages,
mm.
period.
What are
Your
the
world
stages?
what's that?
I said, what are the stages?
Yeah, yeah, and I'm happy to share them. Like, their world has been completely upended. They've been initiated, and you didn't just go through the hardest thing you've ever been through just to recover. No, 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 no. You want to use it as your launch pad to create a version of you that never would have had the ability to be created had that not happened. That's trauma well served. So I'll walk you through, just so super briefly, the 5 stages. Everyone will know exactly what stage they're in when I say it. Okay. So stage 1, this is actually before it happens. And if you can imagine 4 legs of a table, the 4 legs being physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. What I saw with everybody, me too, was a heavy lean on the physical and mental thinking and doing. We're so good at that, right? And
Mhm.
kind of neglecting or ignoring the emotional and the spiritual, feeling and being. Well, if a table only has 2 legs, it's going to be easy for that table to topple over. That's us. Stage 2, shock, trauma, D-Day, discovery day. This is the absolute scariest of all of the stages. This is when you get the news that
Mm,
forever changes your life. You have now had a psychological earthquake. Life is compartmentalized into 2 camps: before it happened, after it happened. Everybody remembers their D-Day, right? And here's the breakdown of the body, the mind, and the worldview. So right here, you've ignited the stress response. You are now headed for every single stress-related symptom, illness, condition, disease. Your mind is in a total state of chaos and overwhelm. You cannot wrap your mind and understand what you understand what you just learned. This makes no sense, and your worldview has been shattered. That's your mental model. That's the rules that govern you. You could trust this person. These
mhm,
are the rules. Go here. Don't do that. And in one earth-shattering moment or series of moments, every rule you've been counting as real and true is no longer. The bottom has bottomed out on you, and a new bottom hasn't been formed yet. So this is terrifying, right? But think about it. If the bottom were to bottom out on you, what would you do? You'd grab hold of anything or anyone, right? In
mhm.
order to stay safe and stay alive. That's stage 3. Survival instincts emerge. This is the most practical out of all of the stages. If you can't help me, get out of my way. How do I survive this? Who can I trust? Here's the trap, though. This one stage, stage 3, this is the one most people get stuck in years, decades, a lifetime. Here's why. Once we figured out how to survive our experience, because it feels so much better than the shock and trauma we just came from, we think it's good. And because we don't know there's anywhere else to go, we don't know there's a stage 4 or stage 5. Transformation doesn't even begin until stage 4. But because we don't know there's anywhere else to go, we plant roots here. We're not supposed to, but we don't know that. And 4 things start to happen. Everybody's going to see themselves right here. The first thing is we start getting all these small self benefits. We get our story. We love our story. We get to be right. We get someone to blame. We get sympathy from everyone we tell our story to, right? And on some level, we are so unhappy that this feels good. So we take it. So we plant deeper roots, right? And now, because this is where we're living, this is, we start thinking, well, maybe I deserve this. Maybe I am all this and that and the other thing. So now we plant deeper roots. And now, because these are the thoughts we start thinking, this is the energy we put out. And like energy attracts like energy. So now we start attracting people and circumstances and even new relationships to confirm, yep, this is where I belong. Right here is where we join that support group. And now we found our people. Right here, we start going to therapy. We feel heard and validated and understood. And we're like, it's gluing us to stage 3. Right here, we don't feel strong enough. So we sabotage ourselves because we're afraid to outgrow our betrayer. That makes sense. It gets worse. I'll get you out of here. Because it feels so bad, but we don't know there's anywhere else to go. Right here, we start numbing, avoiding. So right here, we start using food, drugs, alcohol, work, TV, scrolling, whatever, to just distract us from this place that doesn't feel good. So we do it for a day, a week, a month. Now it's a habit, a year, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. And I can see someone 30 years later and say, that emotional eating you're doing, that drinking you're doing, whatever, do you think that has anything to do with your betrayal? And they look at me like I had 2 heads and say it happened 30 years ago. All they did was lock themselves in stage 3 and stay there. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
And here's where they have the symptoms of post-betrayal syndrome. Here's where they're medicating, numbing, avoiding, suppressing. Here's where they have repeat betrayals because if nothing changes, nothing changes. And they're like, life stinks, but that's because they're stuck in stage 3.
And they've been doing it for so many years. It's like normal.
Exactly. And they don't know there's anywhere else to go. You see? Can I get you out of 3 and get you into 4 and 5?
Yeah.
Okay. Just don't want to leave anybody stage 3. So if you're willingness is the biggest word right here, willing to grieve, mourn the loss, right? Let go of your story and all it gives you, a bunch of other things. You move to stage 4. Stage 4 is finding and adjusting to a new normal. So here's where you acknowledge, I can't undo what happened, but I control what I do with it. Just even in that decision, you're turning down the stress response. You're not healing just yet, but you just stopped the massive damage that was going on in stages 2 and stage 3. Stage 4 feels like if you've ever moved, that sort of hopeful excitement, right? If you've ever moved to a new house, office, condo, whatever, your stuff's not there. It's not cozy yet, but you're like, yeah, we can do this. This is good. This is the places. This feels right. But think about it. If you were to move, you don't take everything with you, right? You don't take those things that don't represent who you're now ready to become. And what I found was there was this one spot as people leave stage 3 and enter into stage 4. If your friends weren't there for you, you've outgrown them. You're done. That lame support group, you're done. That therapist who you're just talking it out and not getting anywhere, you're done. The betrayer who's not changing, you're done. And people ask me all the time, Dr. Debi, is it me? Yes, it is. You're undergoing a transformation. If they don't rise, they don't come along. So it's not necessarily like a lonely place, but it's a very personal place. Like the caterpillar goes into that cocoon by itself, right? Very personal space. And it emerges as the butterfly. Anyway, when you've settled into this new space, you've made it cozy, you've made it kind of mentally home, you move into the 5th most beautiful stage. And this is healing, rebirth, and a new worldview. The body starts to heal. self-love, self-care, eating well, exercise. You couldn't do that before. You didn't have the bandwidth. The mind is healing. You're making all kinds of new rules, new boundaries, based on this version of you that you're becoming. And you have a whole new worldview based on everything you see so clearly now. And the 4 legs of the table, in the beginning, it was all about physical and mental. By this point, we're solidly grounded because we're focused on the emotional and the spiritual too. Those are the 5 stages.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow. I was curious, what happens if somebody is stuck?
Yeah, they're in stage 3. That is deep stage 3. And you know what it is? It's so painful, but it's so comfortable and it's so familiar. So like with my coaches that I certify, they're going to see patterns. They're going to see someone stuck. You have to let them know what they're experiencing. And can you see my hands? I'll show you something, everybody. You'll never forget this. So this is what people typically do. They're in a relationship, they're betrayed, they're so sad, they're so unhappy, they're so hurt, and they just want that pain to go away. So they go back and they do a lifetime of this, whether it's with that person or someone else, right? But nothing's changing really. You see, it's the same thing over and over. More symptoms of post-betrayal syndrome, the less they feel good about themselves because nothing's really changing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Here's the difference. When they say, I'm done with that, I am moving through the stages, they start doing this. But if they're so committed to this person, they're going to keep sabotaging themselves because they're afraid to outgrow their group. They're afraid to outgrow their betrayer, you see?
Mm-hmm.
So, but they like it here. So then they're like, well, why doesn't this person do this? Well, they're not willing, they're not capable, whatever. So eventually, you know what happens? You get this. Where it's like, ooh, you've kind of outgrown each other. Or eventually you get this. But if this is where you live and you refuse to sabotage yourself, this person either says, I better step up my game to meet the strength of this person. This is a 2.0 relationship. That's what I did with my husband as two very different people. Not long ago, we married each other again, but it was up here. You see, it wasn't this. This was over. This version of me was dead. This version of him died too. I did this on his own. He did this. We married each other up here. But either way, if this is where you live, this can't help but show up.
Wow.
But what so many people do is they just know this and they feel like, let me just get that feeling over with. So let's try again. Let's try again. Let's try again. No, it doesn't work.
Wow. Why do people stay with people that's not willing to be the 2.0 of themselves?
Yeah. It's there were 3 groups in the study who didn't heal, and I'm going to answer your question with the 3rd group. The first group, they were numbing, avoiding, distracting. It may have made the day a bit easier, not without a price. They didn't heal. The second group, this was a group, they had their story. They were sticking with it. They were deeply, deeply rooted in stage 3. They owned that story and all it gave them. And they thought, okay, this is the best it's going to get. So let me just have my story. Victim, consciousness. The third, this was the group that the betrayer had very little consequences. So whether it was out of financial fear, not wanting to break up a family, religious reasons, whatever, that was what I saw with this group was 2 things. Number 1, a further deterioration of the relationship. And 2, this group was the most physically sick. Your broken heart can't take that. But what they're so afraid of the crash and burn, but that's the only way you birth the new. So, I use this analogy. You mentioned my TEDx talk. Do you have post-betrayal syndrome? I think I talk about it in that one. And I talk about a house. And this is what so many people do. Let's say there's an old house and you're patching it up. That would be resilience. You're bringing it back. You're restoring it. So let's say the house needs a new paint job and you paint. That's resilience, right? Or let's say it needs a new boiler. You got a boiler. That's resilience. You're restoring. Here's trauma and transformation. A tornado comes by and levels that house. Your new paint job or your new boiler is not going to fix it, right? Now, you have every right to stand there at the lot where your house once stood and say, this is horrible. And you'd be right. And you can call everybody over and say, look at this. Isn't this terrible? Yes, it's true. It's terrible. If you choose to rebuild the house, you don't have to, but if you choose to, why would you build the same one?
Mm.
Why not give it everything the old house didn't have? Make it better in whatever way. That's transformation. That's the opportunity after betrayal. But what most people do is they're still patching up that old house. No, betrayal levels the house. You could build something beautiful because of it.
Damn. What I love the way you said that. I just imagined the house being built like differently. Wow. Yeah, that gives me a lot to think about. I'm curious, what is the first sign that somebody is actually like starting to come back to their self?
Yeah. You're going to see it it's really, it's a move. The most classic thing, one of the most classic things that we see, it's when you stop researching and going back, like researching narcissism, researching gaslighting, researching,
Mhm.
all
Mhm.
that stuff. And you're like, all of that energy can now be spent on me healing. It goes from looking back to looking forward. That's a big shift. And also when you realize that it's not about you. And instead of you trying to be better, be more, be whatever, no, no, no. You have an opportunity to now say, what do I want? What do I need? What was I settling for? What was I just accepting that this version of me no longer does? I've been in business 34 years and I've been coaching for that long. And there's a mantra that I have had my entire career. And it works I haven't yet to find a topic it doesn't work for. And it's this: hard now, easy later. Easy now, hard later. Take your pick. It's going to be one of those two. When it comes to healing from betrayal, it is all about hard now, easy later. And by that, I mean, when a thought comes in your head, you want to say, what did the old me do with this? Does that still work? No, then I'm not accepting it. No. And it's hard because people are going to look at you like, who does he or she think she or who they are? What's that about? You're creating intentionally and deliberately a new version of you. You are rebuilding based on who you're now ready to become. You didn't have access to that before, but now you see it so clearly and like, you know what? That didn't feel right, but I just tolerated it. No, no, no. This version of you gets to choose who you want to become. Will it shake up the people around you? Yes. And that's why you outgrow a lot of them.
Wow. What?
That's this.
Wow. That's this instead
Mhm.
of this.
Yeah. Because this person has every right to say it only worked when they felt like they weren't good enough. They weren't confident. That's when it worked because then I could manipulate them. Now, when all of a sudden they're confident, the other person's in trouble because it's like, uh-oh, it was all working when they were thrown off balance, when they were off kilter. Now they see themselves for who they are. They're becoming someone new. They're growing, they're evolving, they're changing. Uh-oh, you see? So
Mhm.
this person may not have the ability, the skills, the willingness to say, well, I better grow too.
So what?
Betrayal will show you who someone truly is. It also has the opportunity to wake them up to who they temporarily became. Not that you need to do anything with it, but there's tremendous opportunity when there's that wake up call on their side as well.
Yeah. What if that other person, they're not they're not willing to step up and be that new version of themselves, and um, they're in the situation to where the other person is like, no, you're the problem. How do you get through that?
Yeah, it's a hard space because you have very little to work with there. Like, for example, there was someone who came to me and said, Dr. Debi, my husband's been betraying me for the 30 years of my marriage. Can you do something with my mind so it's not like he's going to change, but can you do something with my mind so it doesn't bother me?
Damn.
No, no, I'm not your person. You know, so some people want to contort their minds so that they're okay with that. I don't even understand that. To me, it's like this was such a tremendous learning experience for you, maybe to realize already how valuable, worthy, deserving, lovable, whatever you are. And when you get that and now rewrite the rules around that, Watch who shows up. Watch who
Mm.
shows up. It's a whole different world.
You when we first started talking, you told me that you started doing this research about betrayal because you had went through something and you kind of did it to heal you. Would you mind sharing that story?
Sure. So first it was a family betrayal, and then I thought I did the work to heal, and then it happened, a couple of years later. It was my husband. That was this, right? I was like, okay, let me just try to heal. I didn't know what I was doing. And then that just shocked the life out of me. So that was the deal breaker. Got him out of the house. I looked at the two experiences thinking, well, what is it, me? Because we only conclude it must be us, right?
Always.
But I was like, I need to get it together. Like, I'm on my own now. I have 4 kids, 6 dogs, a business. Like, I have to I have to get it together here. And like I said, there wasn't anything I could find, anyone I could find to help me heal. And I said, so I'm just gonna I'm gonna study this at the PhD level. I hadn't been in school in 30 years. Like, I went back for a PhD at 50. And I
Wow.
was like, what? How do I even? But I felt so guided to do this. And then it was time to do a study, as part of a PhD. You have to do a study and write a dissertation. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to take on betrayal. And the idea of doing a study is you have to look at all the literature and see what has yet to be studied. And I was like, you know what? No one studied the deep, deep, deep lived experience of someone going through betrayal before, during, and after, and the upside of it. How do they heal from it? So I just took it on, and I said, if I can heal from this, everyone's coming with me.
Wow. And it sounds like you brought your husband with you too. So,
I didn't at first because I was on my own. I was like, that's it. I have to heal, period. And if on his own, we still were in touch because of the kids, of course. But my job, my intention was just to be there for my kids, my clients. And then on his own, he did a tremendous amount of healing. Um, and even so much so, like, he called all my friends and apologized for who he
wow.
was. He did a tremendous amount of work. And I thought, even when I wrote Trust Again, which I shared the story, and I've written a bunch of books, but I remember in that one, and I thought he was going to be humiliated and embarrassed. And instead, he was my biggest supporter. He said, you're going to help so many people with this. And and not even that, even rebuilding a very new relationship with each of our kids, because he was the one who told them. And I think there's something about your 4 kids looking at you like, you did what to mom? Like, if anything has you wake up and realize what matters, it's losing the only people that matter to you,
Mhm.
and earn back, the love and trust of the kids, of me, and truly transform that. I'm a bright woman. I wouldn't be dumb enough to go back for a second time with someone who didn't radically transform, but I did. And I remember questioning, is it possible that someone can really change? And I'm like, but you did. And it was so, to see it, not even in the big things, in the little things. And yeah, and now, we're making up for lost time. We're having more fun than ever. It's a totally, totally different relationship based on 2 totally different people.
And all because you stepped out to heal yourself.
That's it. That's it.
Hmm.
It wasn't any other way.
How I know our listeners are thinking, well, how do I rebuild trust without becoming guarded forever or trusting too easy?
Yeah, well, I mean, we teach a 4-part trust rebuilding process, but I'm going to give you, I'll give you an analogy, and you will see where trust goes wrong. So I look at trust like a brick wall. And the only way I know of a brick wall being built is brick by brick by brick. Every opportunity someone has to show that they're trustworthy, that's one brick in that brick wall, right? So it takes time to build. And now imagine, in one earth-shattering moment, someone comes by, shatters the entire brick wall, right? Well, the only way I know is to build it back up brick by brick by brick. But here's what happens. The person who's who shattered the brick wall has to be a really good bricklayer and put it back up the same way it went back up the first time. The other person has to, if they choose, they don't have to, they can look at the rubble of bricks and say, I'm out of here. Totally fine. But if they want to stick around, their job would be to watch that brick wall be rebuilt. But what I see so often is the person who shattered it doesn't really have much of an interest in building it back. So the other person's like, fine, I'll do it. No, it's not their job. That's why they're hypervigilant. That's why they never feel safe. You see, their job is to watch that brick wall be rebuilt.
That hit me. Wow. Yeah, it really got me kind of thinking about some circumstances in my own life and stories that I've personally heard from other people. I think that is a perfect analogy, and I'm so glad that you're doing this work. I'll tell you, I've never ever would have even thought about having somebody on my show talk about this subject if it didn't freaking greatly impact me. And just listening to, everything that you said today, since we've been talking about just the fact that, you go through these different stages, and you have to have this like never give up mentality. I think that is incredible. I think that's what you're saying. That's what I've received. And I hope that that's what the guests, the listeners have received as well. If somebody is listening to this and they're still like, damn, I still don't know where to go, and they want to reach out to you directly, how would that happen?
Yeah, they could just go to the PBT, as in post-betrayal transformation, the PBT Institute.com. We have our certification program, high-level coaching with me. We have my books, our podcast. We have everything. It's all there. The PBT Institute.com.
I love it. Last question. And I want you to talk, if you would, directly to somebody that might be watching this and they feel like they are shattering privately, but publicly they're pretending like they're fine, and they're just gonna be all right with no help.
Here's what I would say. It's one of the most painful of the human experiences. This is a shock like no other. And even if you try to compartmentalize it, where you're like, I'm going to keep it outside of the office, or I'm going to keep it outside, it seeps into everything. You owe it to yourself. You've been through the worst of it already. You owe it to yourself to move through the stages. If you knew what stages 4 and 5 felt like, you wouldn't waste another minute in stage 3. There's a roadmap. It's available for everybody. Give yourself the gift of moving through the stages, period.
I love it. I think we're going to leave it at that for the final words. Thank you so much, Debi.
Thank you so much.
Ooh, that was great. If you enjoyed this podcast, well, I'm sure you enjoyed it. If you're still here with us, what I want you to do is head over to your favorite podcast and streaming network and give us a download, subscribe to the channel, and also let us know what you think about the show. And from the bottom of my heart, I want to say thank you for the things that you've done. Thank you for the things that you're doing. And especially thank you for the things that you're going to do, because I know that you're going to do something amazing. That was so good.